Xbox has a November update, Phil talks Game Pass, and streaming, it comes to everybody. This week has been a big week in the world of Xbox. Xbox turned 20, Microsoft had a big extravaganza, they talked about lots of stuff, but Microsoft said, you know what, that's not enough news for the week, so let's just keep dropping more new little nuggets that are going to make people happy. So the first thing that is up on the agenda is that Microsoft is making cloud gaming available to everybody, and everybody meaning the asterisks if you have the Epic Game Pass subscription tier. So what you can do now is if you are a subscriber to Game Pass Ultimate, you can go onto your console and you can stream games from the cloud on your device and not have to wait for them to download. Now, we've talked about this a million times about how this is such a great feature for trying out games and not having to commit to downloading them because storage is pretty much full. If you've downloaded the Halo and you downloaded Call of Duty and you want to download Flight Sim, you're kind of out of luck. And that meaning all the Call of Duties because they're massive for whatever reason and we can't get past it. Anyways, this is now available, and so this is a really good feature, and it's one of the big rocks that Microsoft was trying to push towards in this year after the launch of the Xbox console. Now that you have cloud gaming, you have dashboard updates and many other features, the consoles are demonstrably better than when you bought them. And so this is just another feature that Microsoft is delivering, again, at no additional charge, but of course, if you want to play cloud gaming, you're going to have to be paying for that. Speaking of cloud gaming, Microsoft is also saying that Flight Simulator is going to be coming to the service in early 2022. This is super interesting, mostly because a lot of us are like, well, why didn't it launch when the game came out back in, what was that, July or something like that? And so now we know that it is coming officially, and obviously there's some big uplift, probably because of all of the complexity of the game, right? There's like real-time data streaming, you have like weather and all that other stuff, and I suspect that may have played into it. I'd be curious if Microsoft would ever comment if this is the most complex game that is now in their cloud gaming service once it arrives, that is. So be on the lookout for that in early 2022. Now, Microsoft is also detailing today because, hey, we don't have enough to talk about the Xbox update for the dashboard in November. So there's honestly quite a bit here. It kind of spreads the gamut. So let's just dive into this. So the first major update is related to accessibility. There are color filters, and now you can fine tune them. So that makes it a lot easier if there's a specific wavelength or something like that, or color is, wavelengths or color, whatever. You can now fine tune that to make it easier for your eyeballs. And don't just be like thinking, well, I don't have any problem with my eyes, I shouldn't adjust the color. Like, I change colors in a lot of games, especially if they're hard to see. Like sometimes Honestly Blood, making it bright green makes it a little bit easier to play games. And so you can now go and fine tune that stuff for the dashboard and other experiences. It's worth checking out. Also, game developers can now tag their titles with up to 20 common accessibility features used by a gaming and disability community, making it easier for you to find content that meets your needs. This is just a simple way for developers to broaden the appeal of their titles to a specific community, and that's a pretty cool thing that is here. Also, in this release, there is a new streamlined audio experience that is now available for all Xbox consoles that makes it easier to adjust and fine-tune your option settings. You'll be able to find this in additional options and audio testing and detail screen, and you'll be able to go through and really customize how the audio works on your device. This is great if you have a complex setup. One of the features, or I should say probably the biggest feature that I am looking forward to in this one, is the controller update for the Xbox, the original, or I should say Xbox One wireless controller, and the Elite Series 2 are now getting the DLI update, which is the Dynamic Latency Input Update. This is basically Microsoft putting the software that is on the controllers that ship with the Xbox Series S and X onto their older controllers, so you should get an improved responsive feedback, and that is pretty awesome considering they didn't have to do this, but they're making their old hardware better through this DLI update, so be on the lookout. I believe typically you have to actually plug your controller into the console. I don't know if we'll be able to do it wirelessly yet, but just be on the lookout that you might need to actually get out a hard wire and plug it in, which is kind of a pain in the butt, but whatever. There are also updates to the Xbox app. Microsoft is making it easier to link to your content that you have created while you are sniping headshots or whatever you're doing online. It's been honestly a little bit surprising that you couldn't directly deep link to something like this, but Microsoft is making it easier, and they're also introducing what we would typically call in the old days, maybe you still call it a wizard, but they're making it easier for you to find the Xbox Game Pass plan, it's hard to say that, that fits your needs. And so there's a little wizard that you can walk through that helps you align to that. So those are sort of like the big news items that were dropped quite today, but there's some other news because Mr. Phil Spencer was doing the media rounds ahead of their Xbox 20th celebration, and it reached out to, he was in a lot of different publications, including Axios and GQ, but there's a couple things I do want to point out. So NFTs are a hot thing in the gaming world right now, right? Creating games on non-fungible tokens, which is related to cryptocurrency, and which is related to JSON scripts and other things, and so there's a lot of like, hey, is this a giant Ponzi scheme or is this truly Web 3.0? I'm not going to get into that side of it, but Phil Spencer pretty much says, like, we're not getting into that. And what he actually is quoted as saying, he says, what I'd say today on NFT All Up is I think there's a lot of speculation and experimentation that's happening, and that some of that creative that I see today feels more exploitive than about entertainment. So thinking through, like, there's a lot of I don't want to get too deep into the crypto stuff because my comments will get blown up with people on one side or the other, but there you go. So it doesn't look like Xbox is going to be going into the NFT arena anytime soon, I think is the key takeaway here. More importantly, for things that I like to pay attention to, is Game Pass sustainable? We've often speculated that Microsoft is dumping a bunch of money, like backing the wheelbarrow up, dump it into the developers' hands, let them produce games, and Microsoft is just trying to do this as a means to an end to get to the pot of gold at the end of the subscription rainbow, and that it's not sustainable. But Phil Spencer has come out with speaking to Axios and says, I know there's a lot of people that like to write that we're burning cash right now for some future pot of gold. No, Game Pass is very, very sustainable right now as it sits and continues to grow. That's really interesting that he is explicitly calling out that Game Pass is sustainable. Now, we don't quite know the numbers. The reason why a lot of speculation has been that it is not sustainable is that very publicly they missed some of their milestones for Game Pass subscriber growth, right? The last number we've got is 18 million, and then it came out that 25 million and they were targeting 30 million. We don't actually know how many Game Pass subscribers numbers there are. Now, we're fully expecting that those numbers are going to pop up here quite a bit because Microsoft has released a bunch of good titles back to back. So we've had Age 4, we've had Forza Horizon 5 that got snubbed for Game of the Year, and that is ridiculous because I think it is Game of the Year. Not that Psychonauts 2 isn't good, but Forza Horizon 5. Yeah, anyways, and then we also have Halo Infinite coming up, and I know I'm missing more titles in there as well, but Microsoft has really packed the Game Pass subscriber little bundle package, if you will, because if you think about it, typically speaking, Game Pass is roughly 2 games, right? $60 is the traditional pricing, $120 is what it costs for a Game Pass for a year, and so it should be growing. It should be growing because it's $15 a month. Everybody knows the math. Anyway, so if Microsoft does not share Game Pass subscriber numbers after this quarter, I would be a little shocked at that point because that is something they have been promoting and pushing so heavily, and yet after their biggest quarter launch probably in the history of Game Pass in back-to-back successive months, they deserve to be sharing those figures if they're going to continue to say that it is sustainable and that it continues to grow. Well, we need to see these numbers if the proof is truly in the pudding. So, there you go, guys. Just wrapping all up some of the bigger announcements of the week into a nice little neutron star-sized ball of Xbox news. As always, make sure to keep it subscribed here because the only BS on this channel is me.